Sasha Banks was a horsewoman of the WWE, whose character and performance brought a focus into women's wrestling, so it's a shame that things broke down between her and the WWE, with rumors she's been released from the company. But in this video, we'll be looking at just how far the WWE wants to go to erase Sasha from the company's history. First up, Sasha Crew Not for Life? If you happen to watch the 17th of June episode of SmackDown, you may have noticed someone in the audience holding up a sign saying Sasha Crew for Life. The sign was most visible at the end of Raquel Gonzalez's match, where she triumphed over Shayna Baszler as she celebrated her win in the middle of the ring. Or maybe you didn't notice, people bring all sorts of signs to WWE's shows, and we tend not to pay too much attention to them. But some eagle-eyed fans noticed that, in the edited highlights reel of the episode, the text of the sign had been edited out, so now you have someone holding a blank white sign in the audience. This is just the latest example of what seems to be a scorched earth policy at the WWE. Although the company haven't confirmed anything about whether Banks and her tag partner Naomi are still with the company, they've taken a few steps to erase them from the slate. Their merchandise at the WWE shop? Gone. Their official Facebook pages? Gone. References to the WWE and her Twitter? Gone. And now apparently, if you show your crew loyalty at their shows, that's gonna get edited out as well. We've seen these moves from the company before, though it was clearer in those cases that the WWE wanted nothing to do with their stars. While they're tight-lipped about Banks and Naomi right now, none of this could be any good. But why is the WWE giving their top women the cold shoulder? Although the big blowout that Sasha Banks and Naomi had with the company happened in May, we have to go back a little further to trace the true origins of her feud with the WWE. Specifically, we're heading to April of this year, with WrestleMania 38 on the horizon. For months, Sasha had been booked for a singles match with Charlotte Flair at the Showcase of the Immortals, with the SmackDown Women's Championship on the line. For wrestlers, battling for the top title of your division at WrestleMania is a dream come true. But then, the WWE found out that Ronda Rousey had become available to compete at WrestleMania. Like an RKO out of nowhere, Banks was given the news that she'd have to give that spot to Rousey, and she'd instead be competing in a tag team match alongside Naomi. It's not that Banks had anything against Naomi. By all accounts, the duo put on a great show and walked home the women's tag team champions. And the team has been over ever since, up until this fiasco. The truth is that the WWE hasn't really shown much interest in the women's tag team division, focusing more on singles matches for the women. That's the thing that stung Banks. Not only did she lose her shot at the women's championship at WrestleMania, she saw Rousey get priority over herself, and then she was consigned to a division that the WWE didn't have any direction for. Over the next few weeks, things simmered, but on the 16th of May episode of Raw, they boiled over. They were booked for a tag team match on that show where Naomi and Sasha would apparently turn on each other. With their team broken up, Naomi would go on to challenge Bianca Belair for the Raw Women's Championship and lose, and Sasha would have faced off against Ronda Rousey for the SmackDown Women's Championship and lose. Because the duo had been over with the fans, the WWE wanted to break them up for the drama and use their individual star power to boost the champs. Another concern the duo had was with their opponents in the match, feeling that they were unsafe to work with. Feeling disrespected by WWE Creative, the two marched into John Laurinaitis' office and had a verbal powwow with him. Supposedly, Laurinaitis called them spoiled and that they needed to fix their attitudes. That went just as well as you'd expect it to. The two of them left their belts on his desk and walked out. Past that, everything has been just rumors and speculation, and overt moves from the WWE to erase them from the company's image. Time will tell what their futures will be, though if the recent events are any indication, we'll probably be seeing them on AEW before long. On a closing note, what are some other times WWE obliviated wrestlers from our memories? The two most high-profile examples of the WWE pretending that their stars never worked for them are a lot more controversial than what's going on with Sasha Banks and Naomi. We're talking, of course, about Hulk Hogan and Chris Benoit. Hulk Hogan used to be the WWE's biggest star, and was arguably influential in the worldwide boom that professional wrestling experienced in the 80s. It would take a lot for Vince to dissociate from his most iconic performer, but his limit was tested when some not very PG footage of Hogan was leaked onto the internet. That footage included all sorts of awkward stuff, including Bubba the Love Sponge's wife manipulating Hogan, and then talking with Bubba about how this would be their retirement plan. Not the sort of thing the WWE wants to be involved in, and sure enough, it seemed that the man who headlined 8 of the first 9 WrestleManias had never existed at all. They relented on their policy a few years after Hogan successfully settled with Gawker Media, the company who leaked the tape. The case of Chris Benoit is much worse. After no-showing his ECW championship match at Vengeance, Night of Champions, the company asked the police in Fayetteville to do a wellness check on him. They found that he'd murdered his wife and son before committing suicide. Naturally, the WWE doesn't want anything to do with the murderer, but there's another reason they distanced themselves from him. An autopsy showed that Benoit suffered from a terrible amount of chronic traumatic encephalopathy, caused by decades of falling headfirst onto the ring and taking chair shots to the head. Along with wiping all traces of Benoit from their slate, the WWE also introduced policy changes that, in a sense, created the PG era. They've started going easy on their scorched earth policy regarding Benoit, but only a little bit. Now, for some other news. Speaking of wrestlers with uncertain futures, back in February, Brian Kendrick tried to make the jump from the WWE to AEW. He was an NXT 2.0 prospect, but he must have figured out that he could have a better future at the WWE's new competition. That didn't really pan out for him, as the AEW discovered that he was a supporter of conspiracy theories about 9/11, the Holocaust, and the Sandy Hook school shooting. So he got rejected from the AEW, and the WWE isn't likely to take him back. But this does raise the question, did the WWE know this about Kendrick when they hired him? Apparently they did. Kendrick claims that the WWE investigated those comments and they were fine to sign him, just as long as he didn't say any of that stuff in front of the WWE universe. He agreed to that, and boom, he was wrestling for the WWE. In fact, Kendrick thinks that going back to the WWE isn't an option for him, but it's not because of his comments. In his opinion, the reason why they wouldn't take him back is because he insulted them by asking for his release, and they'd be vindictive against him. We want to say that his career is definitely over because of the conspiracy theories, but he is right. The WWE didn't seem to have an issue with it before. As for someone who is returning to the ring, Titus O'Neil. While O'Neil has been working for the WWE as their company ambassador, he told Wrestling Inc. that he's in discussions with the higher-ups to allow him to step between the ropes again. It's been almost 2 years since O'Neil last wrestled a match. That was on the 9th of November 2020 episode of Raw, where he squared off against Bobby Lashley. Prior to this, he'd been competing on the C-Show main event. He was far from a memorable figure in wrestling. His most notable moment was tripping on his way to the ring at the Greatest Royal Rumble. But things could be different this time around. While O'Neil loves his ambassador job and doesn't want to quit it, he does want to get some time in the ring before it's too late for him. Let's end with an update on fellow horsewoman Bayley. One of the rock stars of the women's division, Bayley has been out of the ring for close to a year now. The former SmackDown Women's Champion was sidelined after she tore her ACL at the Performance Center back in July. It's been pretty concerning that we haven't heard from her since, but wrestling journalist Dave Meltzer says we won't be waiting much longer. It was rumored at first that Bayley would make her grand return at WrestleMania 38. That would have been a killer WrestleMania moment. That didn't pan out though. Her next chance to make a grand return will be at the SummerSlam next month. We're trying not to get too excited, but we're definitely excited. We hear the ref sounding the bell, which means that our coverage of wrestling ends here. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.